Greetings, all you ne'er-do-wells from Azeroth Court. It's the Felgus here again. And today, in this video, I'm going to tell you why, why it is good sometimes to be bad. And by that, I mean sometimes you just need a villain, a true villain. A villain who's not saddled by a sad backstory. And by saddled, I mean that it doesn't explain all the terrible things that they do. There are many interesting shaded gray villains, I won't deny that, but sometimes you just need a completely dark villain, just a real POS villain. Sometimes you need an evil villain, an irredeemably evil villain, to make a story special and to move forward the plot. And I see a lot of people want their complex villains and the crybaby villains and the tragic story backstory villains and the I lost my binky once, and that's why I'm evil, or I lost my love, or yeah. But Old Selgris disagrees. Old Selgris' favorite villains and the ones he feels are the most effective are the POS villains, the completely irredeemable evil villains. Like my own goat villain, Emperor Palpatine. I mean, look at this guy, Sheep Palpatine, throughout the Star Wars three trilogies, the whole Skywalker saga, as it's been dubbed in recent years. Look what this guy does. Pre prequels in the excellent Darth Plagueis novel, he killed his master in his sleep after getting fed up, and sucking out all the knowledge he can that Plagueis the Master is willing to share with him. And he thinks that his master's holding him back, and he wants to be fully in charge. So he kills him and becomes the true Dark Lord of the Sith, after being already dubbed Darth Sidious. He kills the guy in his sleep. What a scummy thing to do. Look how he manipulates people, from Newt Gunray to Count Dooku to General Grievous throughout the prequel trilogies. And he plays both sides of a galaxy spanning war, grooms a delusional teenager and preteen for a decade plus, like basically 13 years, I believe it is in canon. So also that he can conquer the galaxy, impose his own will in it, killing off the Jedi in the process, and have an apprentice, who basically is kind of like a souped up revolver machine gun, so that or an attack dog that he can then stick on everyone and keep himself in power forever by violating the Sith, order, obeying secret rule of two, and decide, no, I just want the rule of one. I want to live forever. No, he probably should have waited until he sucked the knowledge out of Plagueis, of both the midichlorians and the manipulation of him, because he never really was a scientist. That was one blind spot that he wouldn't have needed Hemlock and all the clones and that, which ultimately failed in the sequel trilogy. So he has some blind spots. He did become lazy once he achieved his goal of turning the Republic into the galaxy spanning empire. But the guy certainly is the puppet master, one of, if not the greatest villains of all time in fiction. And then you have his anime counterpart, All for One, who ruined a child's life simply to get back at, and also killed the child's family, or had the child killed the child's family, I should say, to get back at the hero who was standing up to him and the other hero, her successor, who he didn't like. And then also inadvertently killed his brother because he didn't want him leaving him. I mean, this guy's whole thing was like stealing the quarks, basically the mutations of others, so that he could use them for himself, so that he could simply, as he put it, if I could paraphrase, if I could live inside my dream where, everyone existed to serve me, why wouldn't I do it? Just to be supremely selfish. He also took one of the other original Quark babies, who had like this glowing ability, which was pretty useless. But just killed the kid and took it. That was one of the first Quarks simply because he was jealous because other people were admiring this kid who had a useless Quark that he didn't even really need. I mean, the manipulation he does of people from Daki to the League of Villains to Shinaraki, of course, it's just mind-numbing. Some of it is so petty, and the guy has like no redeeming quality except for maybe he has a little bit of affection for his brother, though it's more possession than anything else. He just sees him as a possession. As All Might puts it, you know, he would never give up one of his possessions. That's all he saw his quirkless younger brother as was a possession. So he does have that little flaw, but Chief Palpatine, who I mentioned previously, the Emperor, doesn't even have that flaw. He has no attachment to anyone at all. He just sees everyone as tools, as All for One does for everyone, with the possible exception of his brother. And then there was a guy like Dio from, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's a bit of a tragic story, but the guy is like completely evil and does horrible, cruel things. And he is one of the best and recognizable villains in anime. He's kind of a Lucifer Morningstar type. He's pretty to look at, but he's rotten to the core. So yeah, and another good example would be Voldemort from Harry Potter. He doesn't really have a tragic backstory at all. Is just evil and wants supreme power and to live forever and basically rule all magic in the world. And even when he kills Harry's Paris, he even tries to kill like a kid. That's of course like backfires on him, and why he ends up being basically blown apart and ends up deformed, and having to put his soul in those four axes. So that's what was part of his plan anyway, but he had to accelerate it because he tried to kill like a kid. It ended up being a parasite for like 15 years. And of course, there's Sauron from the Lord of the Rings, who is seen as completely evil, even though arguably maybe in the beginning he wasn't evil, but he's completely obsessed with control, and he has no redeeming qualities. He becomes, by the third age and the second age, completely corrupted, to the point where he's using like murder as and terrorism as tools of political oppression and control, cons the whole civilization there with Numenorians into getting them to assault the Undying Lands after he makes them basically start worshiping Morgoth, his former master, as a god, and even himself. Gets them to assault the Undying Lands and gets them all destroyed by the god of Middle Earth, the supreme god of Middle Earth, Ilúvatar. So yeah, sometimes you just need a truly evil villain, one who has no redeeming qualities, to be the big bad of your story and to move the plot along. For everything to orbit around. I mean, villains with tragic backstories do have their purposes, but I'd say that the villains that I just mentioned are some of the greatest of all time. And arguably, the greatest of all time villain in Dragon Ball, certainly in Dragon Ball Super, though people may argue that it isn't saying much, is one of my favorite villains, heavily inspired by, Lucifer slash Satan from Kipling's Paradise Lost poem, is none other than the one true god, Zamasu. I mean, this guy super super petty, similar to Voldemort or All for One. Super super petty. The fact after he loses a battle to Goku, though he showed signs of instability before that, after he loses a fight to Goku, he decides to wipe out like all mortals because he doesn't think a mortal should be able to wield the power that Goku does. So he uses the Super Dragon Balls, after he kills his trainer, to steal the time ring. He uses the Super Dragon Balls to swap bodies with Goku, steal Goku's body, and combines his own godly power, his Kai power, rather Glenn, with that soul, with the Saiyan biological power, runs amok, using time travel with that ring, runs amok, and kills like all in one timeline all the Kais, thus killing you through the life link all the gods of destruction, deactivating all the angels, conquers the whole timeline, maybe several in different iterations. But we'll get to that in a moment. Then goes back in time again to another timeline, branches it off, and basically teams up with the only person he trusts, which is himself, because he thinks all mortals are evil and corrupt. So he's going to enact a zero mortal plan as he's all the other gods out of the way. He's going to destroy all mortals throughout first his own, timeline, then throughout all timelines. So they said he teams up with himself, ultimately fuses with himself after, the other version of him, the alternate version, makes himself immortal and becomes like this hybrid with like, an immortal body and spirit and the Saiyan Zenkai boost, which he's still undergoing. So basically, ultimate sword and shield combination every time you harm him to the point of death, he automatically regenerates and then becomes stronger due to the Zenkai boost. And even when he's defeated in the anime by Trunks and sliced in half and his body is destroyed, you can't destroy his spirit because of the wish for the part of it to be immortal on the Super Dragon Ball. And he takes over the whole timeline, corrupting it, literally the essence of him does. And then Zeno, the supreme god of Dragon Ball, has to come and erase that timeline. He's starting like the corruption from Zamasu in the sky literally is starting to bleed into his spirit and bleeding into other timelines. The guy's completely irredeemable. He has no redeeming qualities at all. Though Cincinnati might be psychopathic, but that certainly isn't a tragic backstory. And he's the most effective villain, certainly in Dragon Ball Super, and arguably one of the most iconic in all of Dragon Ball. So yeah, sometimes. Then there's, of course, Frieza, who also has no redeeming qualities. Even after he's resurrected by Goku, he still, betrays Goku and wants to use Broly as a weapon. And he learns absolutely nothing by spending a decade plus the spirit in hell and being tortured. So yeah, learns absolutely nothing, completely cruel to his troops, a completely heartless businessman, just destroys planets willy nilly, is very racist, calling all the Saiyans monkeys and looking down on them, and basically a racist besides. As is Zamasu using the word, I previously mentioned, using the word Ningen as a pejorative for mortals, so he's also a racist or speciesist, one could argue. So yeah, sometimes you just need to not overcomplicate matters. Sometimes you just need a completely dark villain. That's just the truth. A lot of people might say, "Oh, we need more complex villains," but Frieza, Voldemort, Thoron, Zamasu slash Goku Black, All for One, Dio to a degree, of course the Goat, Steve Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious, aka Emperor Palpatine. But I'll run counter to that and would argue with your assumption. So at least that's my opinion. So from Azeroth's court, Soul Silver signing off, all you ne'er-do-wells. And remember, sometimes it's good to be bad. Farewell all. Farewell, you ne'er-do-wells.